Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this podcast is for you if you're an entrepreneur. Yes, page and stage come together in entrepreneurship because you may have a solo book out, you may have a contributory book out, you may have a blog. You'll definitely have socials, won't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Check the author bit. Speaking. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, I can't do the public speaking thing. No. I'm not like Tony Robbins. I'm not all rah, rah, rah. Like, good. He does him. You do you. If you class yourself as somebody who's introverted and could never do the public speaking thing, let me just tell you, if you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can do a podcast, just like we're doing now. There are different stages available. So come join us. Anyway, I am so excited, really, really excited to introduce you to Laura Ballet.
Ballet, just like the dance.
I wanted to check because I stupidly didn't check before we hit record.
No problem.
Laura Ballet. Now, Laura and I we've been having a chat offline, and I suddenly realized, oh, come on, we've got to hit record. So this has been a fascinating conversation already. Come on in, audience. Come on in and join us. Now, I can tell you a little bit about Laura. Fascinating lady that she is, but she knows herself far better than I do. Laura, I'm going to pass the baton back to you. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you've got to where you are now.
Thank you. I love what you said. If you can have a one-to-one or one-on-one conversation, you can speak. I think that's so empowering. People forget how important that one-to-one connection is. Yeah. You matter. What you're saying matters. That interaction matters. I love that. I think that's going to empower a few of the listeners. So thank you for the opportunity. You and I have spoke many times. But today we were having fun before we hit the record button. I am Laura Ballet, and yes, I am almost hitting that international bestseller. I'm ready to rock and roll on the science of empowerment. I never thought about speaking or coaching around the science of empowerment. I set out to write the book, and then everything else came after it. So just to give maybe that little kind of ignition to someone listening, if there's a story, if there's a vision, a goal, a dream, a kind of that creative energy stirring, a book is such a beautiful way to express that potential. You never know what's going to come from it. So I started coaching. My readership reached out and they were like, can you coach me on the formula? Can you coach me on that particular chapter? And coaching was born. And then from coaching, the love of podcast collaboration. I've done now well over 100 interviews. I love it. It's so much fun. You really do make a difference, if not to many, at least to one. And I think that's so important through the dialogue. So I'm an E360 TV host where we interview authors, and I have spoken in person, but mostly virtual stages all over the world. But I'd love to collaborate and create with fellow entrepreneurial spirits. So thank you for the opportunity.
Good. So good. We could unpack all of you, what you've just said, all for the rest of the day. However, let's take it back a bit. What prompted you to start writing in the first place?
Yeah, this is a great, quick story. My brother, I always give a heartfelt acknowledgement to Christopher. He is a former USA gymnastics coach. He has worked with Olympians. I'll just leave it at that. And he created this very unique formula that he was working decades ago before it was, right, the sexy thing to lean into mindset development work. And he moved back home, opened up a neuromuscular training facility. And I noticed with Olympians or high-end athletes, or even young kids that were in middle school and high school, they had a different mindset. They were already geared towards discipline, sacrifice, and going for the goal. And I was very curious what would happen if everyday people, such as myself, put this formula into application? What would happen if we were able to recalibrate the information and really gain knowledge to empower our everyday lives with our spouses, with our kids, with our neighbors, and our work environment? And I sat down. And 5 years later, the Science of Empowerment was born. And it really was the nudging of family and friends where we would be having conversation, cocktail parties, Christmas Eve, birthday gatherings, hanging out at the beach. And it's the way that I would speak. Everyone would always say, you need to be an empowerment author. You need to be an empowerment coach. And of course, you take that with a grain of, respect. But again, wasn't thinking too clearly about sitting down, writing, and then creating something past that. And my brother just used to say, sister, and he calls me sister, you need to write a book because everywhere you go, you talk, you engage people, they get something from the conversation. You have something important to do. Didn't matter to a million people or 10,000. It was important. And so I wrote the book. And of course, it was the most incredible journey, the manifestation of something that I knew when I was 14 years old. My mom and I still remember where we were in our home in the country where we grew up. And I said, someday I'm going to write a book and change the world.
Oh,
But
wonderful.
I forgot about it through life,
Yeah.
right? I always wrote. I had over 300 journals. I've always been a writer, but I just kind of lost the connection to it. And then it came back up again. So very, very unique. I knew early on, and then life got in the way, but beautifully on many levels. And then my brother came back to remind me, you've got potential in there. You've got your own unique brilliance, and you need to at least connect with it and see what happens. So again, just a reminder for the listeners, you've got that fire in your belly. It's there for a reason.
Love it. When I do that sort of thing, just to audience, you may have remembered this on a previous podcast. I have little goosey moments, as I call them, goosebumps. I call them goosies. And I love it when I get that sort of, it's really important for me to link into that point. So I'm going back a little bit. You're saying you've been a writer all your life. Can you remember when you really started to appreciate that this writing was really important to you? I know you've said at 14 you were going to write this book, but was there a time when you thought, I'm actually really enjoying this? This is good.
Yes, and it was right around, I'm going to date myself a little bit, but we had an actress here in the States, Shirley MacLaine, and she wrote a book titled Out on a Limb. And it was really this kind of new way of looking at spirituality and consciousness, but not too, let's say, airy-fairy, but it was an opening to it. And my best friend Jill and I read it, and that was it. We started journaling and writing and sharing what we were doing. And I realized that by putting thoughts on paper, I was then able to take time to reflect on what I had written and the state of mind that I was in at the time, and then what shifted as I gave it space. And I started to see the correlation of learning self-empowerment and really developing how I thought, how I felt, and how I expressed it, and then what I could do so that if it was something negatively expressed via writing, I could change it. And if it was something positively expressed, I could repeat it. And so I would say right around 14 was when I kind of came into that connection of what I was doing and the purpose of writing.
Love it. Love it. There's another goosey. One of the things that a number of my guests have experienced has been the joy of writing creatively and productively in that respect. Maybe through middle to upper, forgive me, I don't know your grade system, but sort of primary school upwards through high school. But then found that creative, that linking with what they were writing, kind of beaten out of them when they went through university because you had to do the academic writing. Did you find that you lost the joy of writing for a bit, or did you carry on journaling at the same time?
Yeah, so I personally did not go through university.
Okay.
I started a business, very creative, and I was an entrepreneurial spirit very early on,
Great.
and I never lost it. It was, I think for me, it was again that creative outlet. I was a dancer since I was two. I was a
Oh,
ballerina and jazz. I loved music. I loved movement, fluid, kind of energy. We were talking about that
mm,
fluidity and that alignment. So the writing was just another expression. My mother is still an artist, so I grew up watching her paint. I had an interior decorating business, so the visual, I was always tuning in to creative energy, but writing was just something that came very fast and furious. And I think it's almost a very special, intimate way for our higher self to connect with our humanness
yes.
and create a relationship to how to fill in that gap of sometimes knowing something is different outside of being human. And I don't mean that in any specific way, just the potential, again, that vision. And we all know,
Mm,
especially when we're young, we tap into that playfulness so readily and we lose it. And all of the reasons we know that are built into the psychology and the seeding of
mhm.
what the outside influences do. But I was very determined to not let anyone take that part of me away. And believe it or not, I mean, I've been through a lot in my life, like many of us. It isn't all what it appears to be. It is now, but it wasn't then. So
Yeah.
writing, creative flow was very important to me to keep that movement going. I was aware that if I put myself in a state of stagnation, that I probably thought I would implode. And so I
Yeah.
always needed to move the energies, and writing was just something that came very naturally.
Beautiful. As you said, you've also got the dance, the
Yeah.
movement, and do you employ artistic skills as well?
Um, yes and no. I think I do, but it's more free flowing, like we were talking about before we started to record. If I have to follow something specific, I'm like, no, it's just in me. Like I've got to put a little brush outside of the line. It's just how I am. But my mom literally I can give her the front of a beautiful greeting card and she can put that into artistry. But I don't have her talent the way she does. I have different talents artistically, but not quite that way.
That's the thing. We tend to lump creativity in that art,
Yeah.
visual art thing. But all of us are creative in different ways. Not any of us are not creative. And one of the things that I love to point out to people is your creativity can come in different guises. You may be a writer. You may find writing easy. You may find speaking easy. Some people do their artistry through photography.
Mm,
You stick a paintbrush or a crayon in my hand, and I'm not that skilled in that direction. I have done a couple of pieces and gone, oh, that's actually quite good. But give
nice.
me a camera, and I can see some interesting
Mm.
reflections and textures and things. The other things I love to do the creativity is in the kitchen.
I was going to say baking, cooking. My husband's a chef from France. And so
Oh,
always yeah, gardening. And I
yes.
mean, there's just, creating walkways and pathways, or there is, I truly believe coded within our DNA is the brilliance of the universe. I've always thought that. And you can put it in, oh, I'm a child of God or a child of the stars, however you look at it, whatever your particular lexicon is. But I truly believe it's in there.
Yeah.
And if you just give yourself a moment to say, oh, how about that? Or how about that? And even if we do not rise to the fullest of occasion and meet it head on, to venture into that exploration, you just don't know what spark is going to come from that.
Being prepared to try and
Yes.
fail. Just because
Yeah.
you're doing something for the first time, you do not expect to be a, not, I wouldn't say Picasso.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be expect to be one of the old masters as soon as you pick up a paintbrush. No,
Mm.
you're going to take steps towards it. The same thing happens with your writing, with your speaking, whatever it is that you start with. As what is it? I can't remember who said it originally, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step or something.
And we all have those cliches built into humanity for a reason, to remind us that, even I write about it in the Science of Empowerment, taking that first step, and falling back. And can you imagine if somebody, right then just cut you right down? I mean, what would be implanted into the mindset? No, people encourage you, get up, you can do it, come walk over here. And again, I think we lose that, again, that connection with ourselves, that sometimes we have to be our biggest supporter and remind ourselves it's okay if I falter. I'm one of those firm believers there is no such thing as failure. My parents taught my brother and I that. None. You just,
Love it.
go for it, do your best. And if you have a little bit of a liking, do it again. Keep doing it until you feel satisfied.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that because, I mean, I'm reflecting on this audience at the moment. I'm based in Malaysia, in Asia, and the whole vibe of the productivity and drivenness here is in such a contrast to the few months
Mm,
I had in Mexico, where it was the manana attitude and quite literally feeling the difference
yeah.
in the energy between Mexico and Malaysia has been a light bulb moment to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that, Laura.
Yeah.
So that was a little soupçon about your speaking, your writing rather. I want to shift over into the speaking bit because, as you mentioned, you didn't particularly have a thought for speaking, but realized that having written this powerful book, you got to tell people about it in a more structured way than the chit chat general that started you down the roads of writing. So tell us about your speaking journey, would you?
Yeah, this was really interesting. So two points of connection. One, when I was 9 years old, in my fourth grade class, Mr. Grenfeld, he and I had a great rapport. He could tell I had a lot of energy. I always had something to say and share, but it was never in a way that interrupted. It was just this, I just wanted to share. I wanted everybody to be happy and feel good. And even at that time in my life, at a young age, there was a lot of challenges, but I never lost sight of I can choose how I feel. Now, I wasn't able to intellectualize all of the understandings at that point, but looking back, and even then, I just knew I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get myself ready, and I am going to, and I had a button when I was a kid, slay the dragon. And I carried this button with me for decades. Um, and I remember thinking about that. And he would ask me to like talk to the class. And I would just get right up and just talk. And looking back, it was like mini empowerment, uh, like not speaking as if I knew about it, but I was happy. I had, and again, lots of energy. And he was like, well, what did you do over the weekend, Laura? And how are things going in? And he knew, like, I danced, I was always doing a play, I did athletics after school. And he just tapped into, like, maybe kids will listen because she's a kid too.
Yeah.
And then the second kind of pivotal time when I connected to that, the tonality or the energy or the authenticity of what I was saying mattered, is when my brother asked me to bring the first couple pages of my book as I was just starting. And I spoke at a suicide prevention awareness
Right.
benefit. And I remember, and this was weird for me because I don't usually have, I don't get sweaty palms. I do get a little butterflies, but I don't tend to get nervous because I'm like, I'm not going to say or do anything wrong. So I've always just had that confidence. But this was important because it was around people that the matter of
Yes.
what we were talking about had for me great importance. And I spoke, and there was not a dry eye in the house. And it was just a very compassionate way to look at how we can empower the hardships and the challenges and the struggles of what we all go through. I had a cousin who killed himself, so I knew firsthand, and I think that's why that resonated the way it did.
Yeah.
So those 2 points, 9 and then way later in life, they both had that same um, kind of feeling
Yeah.
of this matters.
Yes.
What I'm saying and how I say it, not to everyone, but to some. And I trust that whoever needs to hear it, that's the reason why I'm going to do what I'm going to do. So again, and I don't have to tell you with your expertise, but there's some people that you listen to and you're just like, oh, okay. And there's some people you're like, cool, but you're doing stuff over there.
Yep.
I think if you venture into the speaking environment thinking I've got to lock in to every single person and really make a grand impact on them, that might be a little bit disappointing from time to time. But if you go into a stage or a virtual event and you know that there's someone coming in and I'm just going to support a shift for them. And that shift is then going to help them grow themselves, empower their life. Then it's all worth it.
That's it. I mean, your words have power. And if
Yeah,
you can impact one person
yeah,
by what you're saying, the ripple effect from that is phenomenal.
yeah.
Oh, another goosey moment.
Yeah.
Silly.
And if I may share real quick, it
Yeah.
always makes me think when we were kids, we grew up out in the country on farmland and we had a big pond and we used to skim the rocks and we used to throw the rocks and love watching how the ripple went out. And I keep saying this, but we lose the connection to that beautiful part of us that I think before all of life came at us, we knew, we really knew. And I believe that speakers are there to remind us that we have a voice and we have something to say as well.
Yeah. Oh, goosies. Oh, goosies. Thank you. And particularly, I mean, going back to our point at the beginning about the one-on-one conversations, audience, if you consider yourself to be an introvert and the thought of being on a stage frightens the of you,
Mm,
you're talking to one person. Engage one person at a time. And when you come from the point of, I'm here to speak to one person, that one person becomes your focus. It flips it round from being, oh, I'm so nervous. What are they going to think of me? To know, how am I serving this one person?
yeah.
And
It really is a game changer.
it is, you shift the energy around completely. And suddenly, whoa, as you say, you may still have the little butterflies, but that shows you're human and alive. Yay.
Yeah.
You're not a robot. But that's where I come from. And I love that, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing that it is one person you're going to impact. And that
Yeah.
one person, bing, 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 bing.
And I think even if you look at it through spirituality or through consciousness or through psychology, however, again, your lens, knowing that you were brought to that moment to say something, and there absolutely is always one person that something shifts, and they let you know. It's an email or it's a comment, or
Yeah.
will speak to you, or they'll raise their hand, or they'll type in a chat, may I have a moment? And then you know. And again, when we go forward with that mindset, it does kind of let everything else just be there, but not be the driving force. There's someone that is going to hear something and it's going to matter to them. And then that matters to me. And then we create this beautiful synergy of purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
love it. Now, you mentioned a formula.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, so obviously we want people to go buy the book, but can you give us a little hint as to what that might
Yeah.
be?
I love this. I work the formula all day along my family, for everybody. I don't go anywhere without. I tell everybody about it anyways, because you really, the science of empowerment, this book, the unique aspect of the book is it doesn't tell you who to be, who to become, how to become it. It is this beautiful life manual filled with information, right? Universal gems of empowering information. And then what you decide to do can empower your life. But at its
Ooh,
foundation is the formula, 5 principles, and the awareness to 3 fields of energy. Now, very quickly, we all know in quantum, there's negative and positive energy. But my brother and I talked about placing neutral into the formula.
okay.
So I believe that neutrality is my personal new superpower. I've really learned to harness this. And I think for all the listeners, when you give yourself that grace, self compassion for neutral mindset, now you can just catch a breath. You don't have to go from negative to positive. There's no one pushing you from one to the other. But when you learn how to use the formula, you begin to neutralize the negative patterns, behaviors, habits. And then that allows you to more readily springboard into a more positive outcome.
Okay.
And so when you apply the 5 principles, and they are awareness, willingness, accountability, critical thinking, energy. And if
Mm,
you take a challenge and you ask yourself, what am I aware of around said challenge? What am I willing to do about that challenge?
mm-hmm.
What is my accountability? And I love this 3rd principle. It does not allow space for you to blame. No more outside. You have
Yeah.
to take it in, and I'm not saying release any thoughts, feelings around trauma and issues. Those are total separate, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Conversations. We're talking about empowerment coaching from the
Yeah.
perspective of
Mm-hmm.
you've healed enough, you've worked out enough that you now are okay, and you can take the accountability for your awareness and your willingness. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're accountable. And what I love about critical thinking, principle number 4, is my new tagline to this is suspend emotionality. Just for a moment, suspend the
Mm-hmm.
emotion and think with higher level intellect. Let's just pretend you are already at that level. You've achieved that higher level of connection to universal laws and principles. You know how to recalibrate energy. You know how to move through this formula like that. Just even that thought process starts to neutralize going back to the original challenge that you are now aware of.
Yes.
Now, when you start to think with more critical thought processes, we move into energy, right? Energy is in everything, literally everything, whether it's condensed or free flowing, expansive. Now we get to ask ourselves, and it's right on the cover of the book, which one are you? Negative, positive, neutral. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
negative, that brings you back to your awareness. I'm negative. What are you willing to do about it? What's your accountability to it? Take the emotion out, because the reason why you're negative is you're still attaching emotional reaction.
Yes.
Now we get to decide I'm going to neutralize.
Yes.
Now, what am I aware of? I've got the power to neutralize. I am willing to recalibrate my thinking, journal, exercise, eat better, communicate more, whatever it may be. Now my self accountability is starting to elevate. Critical thinking, this is becoming a superpower. It's my skill now. I don't react as much. I'm learning how to respond. Now I'm more in a positive state of being. I don't know, 2 minutes maybe.
And the
There you
cycle
go.
up and up and up. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I
that
love it.
formula is incredibly, for me, it's life changing when you apply
Mm.
it. And we have 7-year-olds And my oldest client that I train mindset as well as physical neuromuscular training at our facility, literally that range. And are very quickly for all the parents listening, our 7-year-old, she's now, God, I think she's almost 14. When she used to come in and I would explain to her negative, positive, neutral, and superpowers, and we did the girl power thing, she named her negativity, which she understood: tantrum, sleepy, doesn't want to get along with her sister, doesn't want to do chores. And of course, we worked through all this. She named him Negative Bob. We still talk about it. She'll come in to what we call the cage where we train. And you can tell the minute I see her, and I'll be like, how are we doing today? Which energy? What environment are we choosing? She'll say, hold up, coach. She literally will walk out the door, come back in, and I'm like, what'd you do? And I know I left negative Bob out there. And she comes right back in. And then I've had elderly clients, right? And I'm talking grandparents who have really wanted to change for their grandchildren. They felt it was too late for their relationship with their children. But again, that's just perception, right?
Mhm.
And their lives have changed. And they've always said, if I had this book back in the day, but I'm like, you have it now. That's
Yes.
all that matters. So there's no age limitation per
Mhm.
se. I'm actually talking to someone right now about getting the formula into a program into the schools. And can you imagine if a teacher every morning said, okay, you're in the power seat of choice, negative, positive, neutral. How would you like to go through this day? How would you like to experience your day in school? Got to be here all day. Why don't we work on our awareness, our willingness? Da, da, da. And it's something you can do in 5 minutes that will begin to plant the seed or create new neuronal pathways in the brain. But we can do this at any age.
Once your critical thinking bit kicks in around 7, that's ideal. And as we are very well aware, up until around the age of 7, you sponge everything in. You pull in everything because you've got no critical faculty. But once you get about 7, the, forgive the way I phrase it, the bullshit meter comes into play, and you go, I don't know that I agree with that, because that's often where the questioning of Santa comes in.
And we have this innate kind of, I'm going to say this innate little monster in us that starts realizing I can say no and I can throw tantrums and get my way or whatever it may be. And it's a little bit of a disadvantage. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a nurse, and she was saying that you should write a book for parents before they get married and before they have babies, for adults, and for this reason. And I've started to ask some of my daughters are both in their 20s, like their friends, like, why do you want to have kids? Oh, I think it'd be so cute. Oh, they'll be so
They grow up.
fun. I want a baby girl. And you can hear, and I'm like, no, why do you want to bring a human being into the world? What is your int They have no way of answering. And so I think it would be almost, I was explaining to my husband the other night how when I grew up, certain religions, you would go and have premarital counseling with
Yes.
your priest, your pastor.
Mhm.
Uh, some people still do that, of course, but not the majority. And there's a reason for that, to check in. Where are we individually and together? And
Yes.
do we really belong fulfilling this kind of idea of
Yeah.
what it can be? So again, this is the beauty of the formula in the book. It really does help you to acknowledge and begin to heal aspects of yourself because you start to feel, I've got that power. It's in me. And whether we journal or we speak or we create or we paint or we garden or we volunteer, we just begin to tap into that potential. And that movement starts to kind of almost jackhammer, right? The cement of back to when we were 7 and we started being more aware around us. And we started to get really affected by people who were in charge of our well-being, but never did the work for their own well-being, and thus the patterns persist.
Oh, so much in there, Laura, so much in there.
I know.
Thank you. So your book came out, you mentioned the 5 principles. Sorry, the five parts of the formula, but you also mentioned, was it 3 principles on top of that?
So 5 principles,
5
and
principles.
then, yep. So we have, yeah, we got moving around. So we have the 5 principles that you move through, and then the 3 fields of what we call energetic mindset. So negative,
Yeah.
positive, neutral. And when
Right.
you apply the 5 principles and you move into or position yourself into the power seat of choice of which energy you want to be, we now that equals E. So it's J3 equals E. The principles are the Jekyll principles, JEKL. That is an acronym for the 4 important people of my brother's lives with a halo above and below, represents our parents. I'm the L in Jekyll, so JEKL. So you take the 5 principles, that's the J, the 3 fields of energy, negative, positive, neutral, equals E, empowerment. When you apply the principles, position yourself into the power seat of choice of which energy you intend to become and be. Now you can create an empowered life. So the J3 equals E. Yeah, and it's applicable. We literally have kids of all ages coming in and training, athletic, training, but their parents come in and then their parents are like, "Oh my God, what are you doing to my kid? They made the bed, they helped with the dishes. They're not talking back so much." And we're like, because we are empowering them. It's already in them, but they need to be reminded because, as you said, when we're 7 and grow, we become an algorithm of someone else's thought process. We really do. Thought is implemented in, and then we behave, thus create habits that become the personality. When you kind of work at moving that a little bit around and you let them know, you have the power to be kind. You have the power to be helpful. You have the power to be a big brother, a big sister, and really care and be compassionate. They light up. And then there are a few that there's issues at home. We all know we all have issues, but we keep working it. And it really, I mean, there's just thousands and thousands of people that the book and the coaching has helped. And again, it's not complicated.
But as you said, I mean, with children who are experiencing challenging home situations, when you as the child shift the way that you are behaving,
Yeah.
with any dance, whether you're a child or an adult, with any dance interaction, if you take your responsibility, your accountability, and change the way you're behaving, the people around you inevitably have
Yes.
to either dance to the same beat or they'll dance out.
Yes. And explaining, so I have something very unique. I helped a gentleman when he was young, in his late years of high school. He was very, very depressed and read the book. There was one chapter in particular, and I coached him, and then he went off and did really well. And then I haven't talked to him in years, and he just came back in. He's had some things, challenging times with work, and he's had to go around the world, and there's just things that happen. And already, we've had like 2 sessions and everything again. He's just like, it never left me. I just lost the connection to it. I needed to be reminded. And, with kids, it's, I think, a very unique situation to help them remember that they are just so incredibly special and they are unique and they are powerful. And that means children of all ages. We
Yes.
have to remind, and I mean, even that child that sits within the adult. And I write about this in the book. When you start to grow and elevate and truly evolve, not everybody stays with you. And sometimes you just have to release, right? And we all know that. And it's a very inspiring and very courageous act when we do let go of those who do not reflect our highest and best interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's yes, that, as you said, it's a courageous act. Yeah. Beautiful.
It
Beautiful.
is.
Thank you. Do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
Mm.
I'm curious about this one.
A very transparent answer is it's just who I am. It just is who I am. It's when I have a very beautiful one of the gentlemen, he's an award-winning educator in the States, and he wrote a testimony for my book. And I know him personally, and he said, I've never met anyone personally that writes like they live and lives like they write. And I think that is the most honest way that I can answer that question. There's no differentiation.
Yeah.
Everything I say, everything I write, everything I speak is so from that power place in me that is connected to something that I can't quite explain, but I know it's there. So it's heart, mind coherence, it's the physiology and the cellular makeup, it's everything that makes us human and all of what that constitutes. And so when I write, it comes from that place. And when I speak, it comes from that place.
As you say, it really is embodying the
Yeah.
energy that is you. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
one
I
of the
couldn't
things I
stop
find,
it if I tried.
well, I love that because the integrity involved in that. Um, contrast with some celebrities that, I
Mm.
mean, it hits the media, and we all have off days. Don't get me wrong, we all have off days. Hearing the difference or seeing the difference that the paparazzi pick up, that so and so really laid into people in the restaurant, and then they're on stage, and you think, yeah,
I know. And we all know that. We all have either locally, we've had celebrities of some sort that we've seen at a restaurant, or we just see what's out in the world. And it is true. You know, who is truly authentic and genuine and who isn't, and who puts on, right? Who puts on the mask because there's something that they need and want from it, and who really is in service because it just feels like the right extension of their life experience. So,
that vulnerability piece, yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
We all have off days, and of course, if you're a celebrity, the paparazzi will be there just to capture it
of
and
course.
splash it
Or
around.
your kid.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had but yeah, that's story for another day.
Yeah, what? You're not a perfect mother?
No, I was thinking of my brother. I have not been blessed with children, but my brother had one of his pieces of creative writing in school was the fact that my father had broken the toilet seat. And this was a piece of creative writing which went up on the wall.
Oh my
And then the
gosh.
parents' evening happened.
Oh my goodness.
But that, I mean,
Well,
the point is though that there's also in a little one you see the ah moment, but it's
yeah.
how vulnerable you as an adult feel comfortable with being, because the authenticity piece, particularly when you're speaking from stage and also from writing. I mean, we were talking about this before we hit record. The advent of AI, a lot of
Yeah.
people are producing books through AI. Absolutely use it to help you and make sure that what goes out is your voice, because when you come to talk about it, if the two are different and clearly different, there's a different energy about it, your audience is going to go, this doesn't sound
Mhm.
right.
I've witnessed that myself. I'm sure you have as well, but part of what we do, and I explained to you before, is I'm a panelist for all the global authors that come on and we interview them. And you can see that very upfront. And we actually had an author who said, I used a lot of AI, which I thought was fabulous, great, that he was able to own that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why I still say, though, AI can help spark, Be that igniter, because you may be looking at a blank page and feel all of this emotion, but you have no way to get it out. You can type something in and there's one sentence or one word, and boom, you've written a page.
Off you
That's
go.
very different. But if you really are, just sitting there and copy and pasting, you're doing a disservice to your potential. And you certainly are being less than genuine to everyone else around you. And that may not be your thing. If it doesn't flow, it doesn't mean it can't or it won't, but give yourself, again, the grace and the self-compassion to play around with it. But you better be able to speak from the heart, because lots of things happen. As I told you, when I was in Costa Rica speaking, and it just shifted. And what I thought I was going to do, I picked up on a question from someone and I knew I had to change it. And if I did not believe in my very essence what I am speaking on, I would not have been able to at all manage that. So I do think it's important to, like everything in life, right? Even we were talking about cooking and being in the kitchen or baking, the artistry of anything that we have a passion about. We can add a little bit more of something if we really love that taste. But if you overdo it, the recipe is wrecked. And I think that's the same thing for anything. Even speaking, we talked about the difference of script and really just showing up. And I am one of those speakers that let everyone know before I go on a virtual stage or in person, there is no script. I can't do it. Let me rephrase that. I can do it. I have a great memory. It's very inauthentic to me to sit and write something, because if I wrote it last night, my energy is different today. It just is. And I am that style of speaker that, again, I'm not a professor. You're not getting graded or assessed on what I'm saying. I'm here to really inspire your own exploration into an empowered IN life so that you may empower EM all of those around you. And the only way I can do that is being very present in that moment when I begin to talk. And you can't script it.
One of the ways I describe that is speakers require banks. You need because people go, oh, I'm in the flow. Well, yes, you are. And rivers require banks. So you know your parameters, you know where the banks are. And within that, oh my word, do you flow?
Yeah.
But as soon as those banks are lost, you overflow, you get into the miry mud. You as a speaker can get lost. And if you as a speaker get lost, I can guarantee you your audience will get lost too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you have to know, you can't go off. If you're speaking for me about empowerment, I can mention, quantum possibility, but I don't go into that conversation. Because the average person, they may, oh, I heard quantum theory, string entanglement, or quantum. Nope. So you can say it once or twice. You can use, again, a certain vernacular or lexicon. There might be a few people that are like, oh, interesting. Okay. But the majority of people that you're speaking to, for someone like me, that's what I do. They know, okay, it's coming. And yes, there are the banks and the flow is just there. And sometimes we have to put a life vest on because here we go. Other times we're chilling back. That's kind of nice. So I think each writer, visionary, creator, speaker, author, whatever it is we're doing out in the world, really hone in, redefine that passionate connection to it. Is this really who I am at my core? And if it is, and you know that this is what you would do no matter what, go for it. Just go for it. Figure it out, right? It's that question. If you had all the money in the world and you had everything taken care of, what would you do? What would you do? And people will go and no, really, what would you do? And you get a few people that, what I do now. And
Yes.
without even a second thought, what I do now. It would just be more expansive. Yeah. You love what you do. And when you love what you do, people feel it. That doesn't mean they agree with everything or they resonate with everything or they follow everything. But there's, again, it's that human to human connectivity. There's something in the spirit, the soul, the consciousness, the mindset. It moves. There's an energy, a synergy to it, and it recognizes itself in that person. And that's an empowering conversation.
Yeah, I mean, on the science of it, we could go down the roads of mirror neurons and all sorts of things, but we'll leave that to one side. Audience, as I said, this conversation could go on all day. Hasn't it been brilliant? Have you got any final words, Laura, as we're wrapping up? I mean, you've just given us a major truth bomb, but I'm just wondering if you'd like to bring us something else just to wrap us up.
Yeah, so I'll leave you with something of around how the book ends, and it's become in the science of empowerment, we have what I call champagne bubbles, and that doesn't mean you have to drink champagne, but there are these power quotes that are popped throughout the book, and my readership all over the world, they love. Every person has, right, one that resonates with them, but there's one that has become a staple in the mindset development, and that is fear has no place within a civilized mind. And if you just take that and think about it, it just means when we make that choice to really elevate and evolve our humanness, fear has no place because we're no longer afraid of who we can become. Those limitations start to fall away and we get to really come full and center. And then everyone loves this. It's how I end the book, but I love saying this. Do not glance at the power, become the power.
Oh, do not glance at the power, become the power.
Yeah, it's that simple. And you can apply that to, I don't care. I had a house cleaning business most of my life. I had an interior design. I went into real estate. I was all over. I had my hands in everything. Everything I did, I went in full on.
Yes.
And you could be the most full on mom, a janitor, a police officer, a fire. It doesn't matter. Own it. It's yours. It's why you are here.
Yeah, that's your assignment right now. Full out. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much, Laura. I have so enjoyed our conversation and for you bringing your from page to stage. Thank you.
Thanks.
For now, bye from us.